Elk hunting breakfasts.
Yes. And actually more, well, let's talk the whole thing for one quick second if you have time.
Yes, yeah.
Is that where you were headed or no?
Of the elk hunting?
Yeah.
Yeah, fire away.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
assuming you guys don't have any more questions about this.
No, I'd love to hear this.
Okay, yeah, fire away, Ash.
so I don't put any real calorie count into it. I really just buy some sort of dehydrated meal for breakfast and for dinner, and then I always struggle with what to do for lunch. Um, Dinner is always going to be a peak refuel. They all have roughly the same. I shouldn't say all of them, but I stay away from the super high sodium ones because I just don't love a lot of salt. I feel like I retain water. Um, and I know there's probably a reason for that, but uh, and then for breakfast, I'll do like um, one of like the oatmeal ones or granola, and then I just really struggle with what I need for lunch. And it, I've never had I've never bonked in the mountains. I've never been just totally gassed. Um, in every hunt's different, but it's really steep. We're in southern Colorado, and it's low elk count, 10,500 feet for an average. We'll backpack in, me and my buddy, and stay for about a week. And um, I think I just need general advice on like last year, my buddy who's heavier than me, I'm 220, he's probably 225, and he um, he cut his peak refuel in half and was eating half a day. And I just looked at him like, "What are you doing?" And so again, I'm very confused on what direction to go, and how to provide the right fuel.
So are you mainly asking about lunch?
Yeah, mainly for lunch. I think I have a good idea of what to do for dinner and breakfast, and I just really need maybe like, am I doing a light lunch? Am I doing just like an apple or something, or
Yeah.
some beef jerky, or should I have a different goal?
Two things come to mind. I'll ask you the first one and then we'll visit the second one. First thing is, what have you historically done?
So historically, I'll do for lunch. You mean specifically?
Yeah.
Um, I'll do like some beef jerky and a little package of like trail mix from Trader Joe's. They sell individual like trail mixes. So I'll do like a trail mix and a little thing of beef jerky and maybe one of those little squeeze things of peanut butter, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess a comment that spins off of that. Rather than thinking the traditional thought of, I'm going to have a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner, what if you had a solid breakfast, your dinner's taken care of, and then you've just got these strategic, 300 to 400 calorie snacks woven in 2 to 3 times per day, if that makes sense, right? Like, so I'll just give you an idea of what we did on this most recent sheep hunt, because you don't have the luxury of really bringing a lunch whenever you're packing in for 12 days. You have a breakfast, and it was like a homemade DIY granola that we had made, and then dinner was covered as well. But throughout the course of the day, I've also got um, salami or jerky in a package. I've got some Nature Valley nut butter biscuits. I've got a couple of those Audrey bars in a package. I've got a really small, less like literally 2 ounces, probably less than this post-it note size of spicy trail mix and a Snickers bar. So I'm never really having lunch, but I might periodically through the course of the day get one or two of those items out, or I might crack open the trail mix and do a little handful and a couple things of jerky, or I might eat one of the Audrey bars and a Snickers, or maybe we sit down at noon and I'm eating a couple of those things. I've just found that to do really two things. One, simplify things in a big way. Because you're right, you can't really think of any lunch items aside from a tuna packet and a tortilla that's going to keep on a 5, 7, 10, 12-day backpack hunt. There's just not a lot of options that lend themselves towards that doesn't require a lot of preparation, etc. Two, it seems to provide, and scientifically it would this would align too, better fuel. It's going to lend itself towards better fuel. The key to staying strong in the mountains on a 5, 7, 10, 12 day hunt, staying as strong on the end of that as you were at the beginning, is you really need to trickle dose this nutrition in all day long. And what you're doing behind the scenes is you're exposing the muscle to nutrients all day. It's like it's laying in a bath of nutrition. Anytime you've got periods, long periods, this is why fasting is such a ridiculous notion if you're trying to build muscle or improve performance or anything other than strictly getting the scale to go down. Anytime the muscle is not exposed to nutrients, you're losing the opportunity to fuel it back up. You're losing the opportunity to recover it, and that means one thing for performance: it's going down. So if you're having these frequent small meetings over the course of the day outside of these bookended meals at breakfast and dinner, you're probably going to feel far better, and it's going to alleviate this burden of like, what am I going to take for lunch? How am I going to keep it cool? How am I going to, whatever. That could be a solution for you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. And I like the trickle in all day approach instead of like because we're moving and rarely do we like I'd say stop for lunch. Maybe hey, we're gonna stop in glass here and
Yeah.
throw in some trail mix or whatever. So it seems like I'm not completely out in left field, which is reassuring.
You're not at all. I mean, there have been areas we knew we were going to spike camp, and we packed in 7 miles, set up a spike camp. We knew it was next to a creek. We'll bring in cheese and lunch meat, stick that in a dry bag, and just submerge it in the creek. And then we're hunting drainages all around that spike camp for 7, 10 days or whatever. But if you don't have the luxury of doing that, where you're just, look, we're putting everything in the backpack and we're just going where the wind takes us, which is the best. um, you can't really count on there being a creek to submerge some of that, and then you're dealing with pulling it out and putting it back in. So, yeah, I mean that trickle dose approach for something like that is not only convenient but it's effective.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick question here. I've seen a lot of or heard a lot of podcasts, stuff like that. Um, a lot of people reference the Snicker bars. What's with the Snickers bar? I'm not a Snickers bar fan.
It's just it's delicious, first of all, Tim. I don't know what's wrong with your taste buds.
Reese's peanut butter cup. I mean, it's no, no, no. We're talking.
Yeah, no, I won't argue with that. But I guess on the other side of it is, it's convenient. You'll hear people make arguments for it's got a decent ratio of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. It's pretty abysmal on all of those. Well, it's high in fat, high in carbs for the amount that you get, but I think it's just the simplicity of it, right? It's in
Okay,
distilled
okay.
water.
Well, when you're in the mountains, I mean, it's all about fuel, not flavor.
That's partially true, although I'd argue anything in the mountain tastes gourmet when you're up there.
Truth, truth.
Well, I did have a question. I know you kind of have been known for gummy bear guy for a while, and when I eat a lot of sugar, I typically crash after that. Um, but I'm not typically eating sugar before, let's say, a hike or a workout. It, can you just explain maybe some of the science behind why that may not happen?
Yep. So when the muscle is active, it's taking that carbohydrate, that fast acting carbohydrate, and it's immediately turning it into fuel if the muscle's active. If the muscle's inactive, then there's a higher likelihood that that sugar is going to sit in the bloodstream and has the propensity to give you a quick lift and then give you a pretty rapid drop. Now, there's ways to work around that we'll actually talk about as we start to dive into the macros, but I think a really good picture, really good image that I love of this, and we've done posts on this. If you think about a cabin and you walk into that cabin in the middle of December and there's a fire that's roaring in the fireplace, and we walk in with a bunch of old newspaper, and you and I were to sit on the couch and we were to spend the whole evening telling elk stories, wadding up paper, throwing it into that fire. No faster than that newspaper hits that fire, it's torched, right? Now, if we were to go in July, same thing. We've got another 6 months of newspaper, no fire roaring. You and I spend all night telling elk stories, wadding up paper, throwing it in the fire. we're going to have a giant mess on our hands by the time we leave there. And the difference between carbohydrate in the muscle and in the bloodstream is similar to those fires. Whenever you're active and that muscle is moving, it is torching through those carbohydrates. Whenever you're not, it has the propensity to build up in the blood more. So the activity and the activity of the muscle and the use of the muscle is really the primary driving force there, because it's whenever you're active and you have those carbohydrates, your body is way more receptive to take them up, turn them into energy, and power you on continuing what you're doing. Whereas if that's not happening, it tends to not do that, either not as quickly or not at all if you've got another, hormone deficiency, like you're not producing insulin for people who have diseases, right? But or people who have diagnoses that aren't able to produce as much as the body might need. So the real key piece there is how active are you? Now, like I don't know if you listen to our podcast at all, but we commented on this recently. Although I have become synonymous with Haribo to where you think I'd be getting paid by them, I'm not. I don't ever eat those unless I'm on the mountain. I mean, even in daily training at home, I don't I don't eat those because I'm in this chair most of the day, right? I do my training early in the morning. I eat a normal, meal pattern or whatever, but at no point am I like, you know what, gummy bears are a health food. Let me just get a handful and start piling them in. I use them for very specific case uses, whether it's, ultras or doing a death hike or doing a a hunt or whatever. So yeah, there's definitely a case use there that you're picking up on that matters.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for elaborating. I appreciate
Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that.
it.
Yeah, you're welcome, both of you guys. You're welcome.